Today I'm excited to meet my mate Nick, who has been living here in Vietnam for a long, long time.
5 years.
Well, 5 years. And because of his knowledge, his background, and all the things that he's been through, all that his journey in Vietnam, I wanted to pick his brain and ask some relevant questions, right? So I'm hoping that this video might help a lot of people that want to make the same journey as Nick has made. He'll give you the pros and cons of the life in Vietnam. And without further ado, my first question, Nick, is when did you come to Vietnam, and what brought you to Vietnam in the first place? Obviously, you must have come as a tourist.
Yeah, I first came to Vietnam approximately 12 years ago with a friend, male.
Right.
We started in the north, ended up in the south. I clicked with Vietnam almost immediately within 2-3 days. More so in the south, with the people in the south.
Were they more friendly? Or?
In my eyes, they're far more approachable, far more open to discussion.
So what was the language barrier then, Nick?
A lot more than it is now. A lot
Difficulty?
more. Very difficult. Even though a lot of people speak English here, they are still somewhat shy, somewhat reserved, especially in the north, because generally they're far more conservative. South, they're far more easygoing. And then I was a bit smitten with the country. I came back a year or so later, and then the visits were becoming at least once a year.
So you had a regular life in where you from?
I come from Melbourne in Australia.
Right.
And yes, I had let's call it a regular life. I was working full time.
Yes.
And I was taking my holidays most of the time coming to Vietnam, and I liked it so much that later on, after the 3rd or 4th trip, I started taking my long service leave at half pay, so I could
Yes.
extend
Did
the
you work for the
actual
public service?
Initially, years ago I
Yeah,
did,
yeah.
but the last job I had was in Melbourne as a tram driver,
Okay.
driving the iconic old trams along Chapel Street. If
Okay.
you know Melbourne, you know Chapel.
Not very well, but I know the trams, yeah. Or well, yeah.
But I was coming and going at least once a year, and at the same time I was contemplating winding down, contemplating early retirement. Life in Melbourne was challenging in many ways for many reasons. And
Were you married in Sydney,
No.
in Melbourne, or
no,
were
definitely
single?
not, definitely not Sydney.
No,
Definitely,
sorry, in Melbourne. Sorry.
heaven forbid.
Yes.
I was coming out of a long-term relationship, very long-term.
Yes.
Let's call it 20 years. But for many reasons that had soured, and I was looking to
Like a sea change?
find not a sea change, a continent change.
Not continent.
Move to a different continent
Right.
altogether.
Yeah.
And I had contemplated a place called Georgetown in Penang, in Malaysia, which like and still like very, very much. Great place. And then I found Vietnam, or rather Vietnam found me, and I clicked with it. And I was coming and going at least once a year. And then on my, I can't recall, maybe 4th or 5th trip, I met someone who I think is very special.
Right. And that was?
That was a woman called Diep, D-I-E-P.
Right. You met her in where?
We met her in a cafe here
where?
in Saigon.
In Saigon, yes.
Very random. I can tell you the story if you want to hear it.
If you can make it a
Short story.
Short story.
I've
Love
gone.
at first sight, actually.
Oh, for her, obviously.
For her.
Obviously. I mean, I'd gone to see a film, and I missed the session by a few minutes. I thought, fine, I'll get the next session.
Yeah.
So I found a cafe nearby, sat down,
Yes.
and about 10 minutes later she walked in, my jaw dropped, and
Yes. You said wow.
I literally said, and I still to this day look at her and say, wow.
Yeah.
And after about 10 minutes, I gathered some courage to approach her. I thought,
Say hello.
Well, say hello. What's the worst thing that can happen?
Exactly.
It's a no.
Yeah.
It might have other
You
words.
see, you could have said Kong Kamun. Kong Kamun.
Sorry, what language is that?
That's the Vietnamese
Oh,
word.
is
No,
it?
thank you.
It must be a different dialect. I don't know that.
It's Kong.
Uh,
Kamun.
You need to get out more.
And yeah.
So I approached her. She was sitting down, and I said, "Excuse me, do you speak English?"
Yes.
And because you cannot assume everyone speaks English.
Right. Yeah.
We are not in an English-speaking country.
Yes.
And she looked up at me and said, "A little."
Yes.
And I thought, this girl's got some attitude, which I like.
Yes.
Started chatting, and 5.5, 6 years later, here I am.
Here we are. Okay.
Here I am.
My question now is that what kept you, sort of motivated or whatever, what was the attraction for you to keep coming back to Vietnam? What are the special activity? I don't know, it's a sort of different country altogether. The culture is completely different to ours. And there are many, many differences. So what attracted you to Vietnam? What was the thing that really made you say,
Keep me coming back.
yes?
A combination of factors. The weather, especially in the south, it's never cold here. Never, 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 never. Even on a so-called cool day, it barely goes under 20 degrees Celsius, rarely. I loathe the cold. I hate it with all my heart. I like the people, especially in the south, very accommodating. My background's Greek, even though I was born and raised in Melbourne. My mum and dad are originally from Greece.
Yes.
And in many ways, culturally, I consider the Vietnamese and the Greeks to be very, very similar in character. Very similar.
In their
They're warm, they're accommodating, friendly.
yes,
They drink too
welcoming.
much.
I think the Greek word we're using here is called "kopyaste." In other words, welcome to my table. They're very welcoming. They'll offer you
Very sociable people.
very sociable people.
And
So,
even the very poor people in the countryside,
yes, yeah.
they're very accommodating, very generous,
Yes.
and that they're very inclusive. Very, as long as you make an effort
Yes,
and don't try and talk down to them, that's a big no-no.
yes,
Don't be patronising.
Yeah.
And even though they seem calm and polite, they're very perceptive people. They can smell, can I say the word, bullshit a mile away. They can smell it.
Okay.
And I click. The food I like. I'm very aware of Vietnamese culture, even in Melbourne, because there's a big expat community.
I think what we find that in say, I'm not sure about Melbourne. I think Melbourne is much friendlier than Sydney. Sydney, nobody takes a notice of you. You know, you're invisible to people. If you walk down the street, nobody will say hello to you. No, you know, and if you try to contact by saying hello, I think you're a very strange person. But here you say hello and people smile. They give you a bit of a smile at least, and everybody's, you know, their own way. They're not overly, how can I say, rich people here. They're very poor people. That's still
Some.
have time for,
Yeah. Many are poor,
yeah,
but there are also some very wealthy people in this society.
yeah,
There are levels of wealth here that I've lived here for approximately 5 years. There are some sections of society here where the wealth is insane. The disparity, the gap between the have-nots is far more obvious here than in any other part of Australia.
I think Vietnam has become now industrialised, right?
Has been for about a
Yeah.
generation.
But as far as Vietnam now is to Australians, is not well known as like Bali or your Thailand or not so much the Philippines, but I think Vietnam is far from their minds as a tourist destination. But from the time that you arrived till now, I think that Vietnam has picked up in tourism. I've noticed a difference I've been here a couple of times in 3 or 4 years, I suppose. And I noticed that there is a bit more, how can I say, a bit more vibe in the tourism. And I think it's because Vietnam now is getting to more be known as a tourist destination.
Well,
But before, and it's still, in many Australians, I don't think Vietnam is really a tourist destination. So.
Well, I'd say it's not on the top 3 places to go
Yeah.
list,
Yes.
but in the last 10 to 15 years, the numbers have only grown in one direction.
Yes.
Dip actually worked in travel and tourism when I met her at the time, and as I said earlier, I had no idea she spoke English or not. Not everyone does.
Yes.
She's fluent, and their numbers 10 years ago were less than now. COVID had a big impact on tourism numbers here, obviously, and they do rely on tourism to a significant degree, but not wholly. The numbers are only going up, and now the numbers are almost at pre-COVID levels and still increasing. A lot of younger people do it in conjunction with a trip to Thailand and or Cambodia and or Laos.
Yes.
And it's a good look if you have the
Yes.
time and some finances. And economically, the country is doing very well. Manufacturing is on the rise, has been for at least 10 to 15 years.
Right.
Even a lot of clothing that you find in Australia, if you look at the tag, you'd be surprised how much of it is made in Vietnam.
Yeah.
A lot. There is a satellite city about an hour from here, from Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City,
Yes.
which 15 years ago, 20 years ago did not exist. Now it's a massive industrial complex.
Yeah.
Massive, absolutely huge.
Manufacturing.
Huge
Or
level.
clothing was it?
Clothing, footwear, small, some light machinery. But it's incredible how many people are employed here in manufacturing.
Right.
And they travel. They travel from regional Vietnam
Yeah.
for stable work.
Yeah, the only, as you talk about the wealth of the country, I notice a lot of people, even street vendors, they've got a pocket and they pull out this wad of money, you know. It looks like for us, if we have that in Australian dollars, you can say, wow, it's $1 million there. But it's about $10 million in Vietnamese, but it means nothing. It's very,
Well,
their
it
exchange
means a
rate-
lot to them.
It means a lot to them, but they pulled a huge
bankroll.
pot of money, bankroll of money,
Yeah, yeah.
and you suddenly say, wow. But really, when you do the exchange rate, it's to our Australian dollar. Anyway, so what I'm saying that now that you have settled down and you settled down with your partner, and obviously she's got kids as well, and
As do I. Mine are adult. Hers
yours-
young.
yeah.
She's got 3 boys.
Well, I met your boy. I met her boys
Yeah.
last night, and lovely kids, lovely boys. So
They
how's
can
it-
be.
Well, of course, like all the other teenagers. But what is happening now? You settle down now, and obviously you've got a coffee shop now. It's called
Uncle Nick.
Uncle Nick's, obviously,
Uncle Nick.
for obvious reasons. Now the coffee shop is called Uncle Nick's. So whenever you're in Vietnam, anybody out there, come and see Uncle Nick. He's in District 1, right? So have a look at your Google Maps and you'll find Uncle Nick, sitting, and if you're only be too glad to have a chat and have a coffee with you. Anyway,
Because of mainly because of Dick's background in travel and tourism
yes,
and my travelling through the country, it's fairly easy for us to help people if they need it, to tailor an itinerary. Some people like beaches, some people like trekking, and the country has a big variety of places to see. So if anyone that actually needs help with tailoring a package, it's really easy to do, even though the infrastructure is a little bit outdated,
yes,
slow. It gives you time to see things and absorb things.
yes,
You don't have to spend a lot of money on a 10-day, 2-week holiday
Yes.
coming from, say, Australia to Vietnam. It's very affordable.
yes,
My sister was here a few weeks ago with her kids and a family friend, and my sister was absolutely gobsmacked, shocked as to how affordable life can be here. Having said that, there's also the 5-star aspect of the city.
yes,
The 5-star side here is very cute, like some serious fine dining,
yes,
really, fancy places.
yeah,
But for everyday living, Saigon, if I had to sort of crystallize it in one word, Saigon, Ho Chi Minh City, it's fun. And never cold. It gets wet sometimes. Now we're starting the wet season.
I've noticed
Well,
that. We're
gets
here
wet.
in June now, and I tell you what, every day you get a thunderstorm. You know, it's a given that it's a wet season now, so you got to carry an umbrella with you just in case. But in that respect, but I'm just saying now that you settled down now with your coffee shop and
Yep.
and you're tied down now with
Very
your life, right? If an expat comes here, right? That expat comes here and he wants to what sort of word I'm looking for? If he wants to do what you wanted, what you did, right, from scratch, right? I'm not sure if you give advice, but what is your advice to them saying? What does he expect without getting frustrated, obviously, and before he just gives up and say this is too hard for me? What does he expect? The challenges, probably the challenges, probably the better word for it, that he's going to meet if he wants to come and move to Vietnam.
The biggest challenge, in my opinion, and as I mentioned earlier, I've lived here a little bit longer than 5 years. The biggest challenge then and now is the language barrier.
Yes.
Even though a lot of people speak English and it's compulsory in schools from the age of 4 or 5 nowadays,
Yes.
people are still somewhat shy, still somewhat reserved. So communicating on a daily basis can be a challenge. I picked up some words, a few phrases, I get by. Now the little old ladies, the street vendors in the market, they don't gouge me as much. But they're fine.
Well, they're trying to make a living.
They
I
have to make
must
a
admit,
living. They have to make a
I don't mind. I mean, I've found that can be a bit of a pest when they follow you around and they manage you. But you got to understand, for a 20 dong or 30 dong, which is about $1 or less than $1 sometimes, if you give them that money, I mean, for them it's a living.
I understand
You know
that,
what I mean?
but where do you stop?
Well, exactly
That's
right.
the tough
but
part.
we don't. If we go to a fancy restaurant, we can go there and we get a bill for
Or a bar.
or a bar
Or a bar.
or a bar. Which Uncle Nick and I went to a bar, and he
I didn't choose it. I didn't choose it.
Anyway, so and we tipped them 200,000 dong, which is so like
$12.
$12,
Australian.
and we don't think about it, right?
I do.
But well,
I do. I
no.
need to. I live here.
We go to a fancy restaurant, you expect a tip, right? And we don't think about paying that sort of tip, right? But when we think about this poor vendor here, and we try to give him 20 dong, which is less than $1 or $1, we think that we're getting very, which I find a very bit mean. But anyway, having said that, we move on. Now,
A challenge that a lot of people don't think about if
Yes.
they relocate, for example, from Australia
we talk
to
about
Vietnam.
we talk about visas now.
Healthcare. A
Yep.
lot of people
Okay.
don't think as
Well,
you
that's-
get
I was going to
older-
touch on that. Now that you brought it up, now there are a few challenges. Language barrier is one. Healthcare is another.
Can be.
Accommodation, if you want to try to find permanent accommodation. Visas, right? So let's look at those things now specifically. Okay, let's start off with. Well, we covered the language barrier. We just say, okay, you have to be patient and so you get by.
I get by, but I'm
Okay.
very fortunate.
Yeah.
Dip is fluent in English, and if I get stuck, which is every other day, she helps out.
Okay.
She's my, she's my
Of course.
support. Most of our clientele in this cafe speak English well, if not fluently, and even if they don't, I get by with the basic knowledge of Vietnamese I have. To order a drink, it's very straightforward. There are some nuances that cause issues sometimes. Most people are easygoing. Healthcare is another issue altogether.
Yes.
Healthcare here,
I think a lot of people do, like our age, well, you're only a young fella, right? I'm an old fella, right? So most of the people that will come here to sort of have a sea change, or continent change as you call it, probably elderly people like me, and they want to travel here for whatever reason, they want to come in here for their cost of living or whatever. And then the main concern probably is healthcare. I mean, we're in Australia, got free medical and all this. When you come here, God knows what you expect. I mean,
Nothing is free.
nothing is free here.
Public health care is not free.
Right.
You pay for it.
Okay.
Private healthcare here is, I won't say unaffordable, but the prices are comparable to prices of private healthcare in Australia. Not much different.
Do you get, so you get a health, do you sign up to a health, you buy a subscription for health,
If you
private,
choose to, if you
med-
choose,
private.
same as Australia, you can get
Yeah.
private healthcare membership here.
Okay,
It's not cheap. A
right.
friend of mine, an American man, hi Bill, he's currently contemplating between company A and B. International companies are the underwriters, and the prices he's told me are comparable to what the prices would be in Australia. I'm not there quite yet. I'm contemplating it. I've used the healthcare system, public healthcare system here twice. The last few years, I've had a few smallish procedures. Is it cheap? No,
Yeah, compared to,
compared to Australia, rather.
yeah, but we don't know the hidden cost of surgery in Australia because, if you go to a public hospital, it's free. You don't have to
But
pay
if you
for
go
it.
private,
If you go private like I do, I have
Yeah.
private health insurance, there's also a added cost. But if you look at the actual bill, say for a procedure, it could cost 3, 4, 5, 10,000,
Yeah.
60,000 for some procedures, right? But here, the medical fund doesn't cover that, so you probably see it.
some medical funds here are comprehensive, but the premiums are high.
Yeah,
The higher the coverage, the higher the premium. Same as Australia.
right.
There are annual subscription fees. There are some out of pockets depending on the procedure you're having.
So when you had the procedures, you mentioned procedures. Did
Yep.
you get straight in, or did you have to wait, or?
The first one I had, I was very fortunate. The consulting doctor spoke English
Yep.
beautifully,
Right.
with a slight accent, but very sharp guy.
Yes.
And it was a case of me asking, I said, how long will it take? Do I have to wait? He said, when are you free? I said, I'm always free. He said, come back in 2 days. I said, see you then. And he was actually the surgeon as well.
Oh, okay.
So that was, within 2 days, I was in.
Okay. And that was a procedure for
Kidney stones.
kidney stone. Oh my God.
Avoid them. They're crap. They're crap.
I know what it's like.
Terrible. Terrible.
I had a blockage. I had a kidney stone stuck in. Yeah, but I felt like I was pregnant. But anyway, let's not
Well,
about that. Yeah. Well,
one thing that I did notice here, the first time that was with the kidney stones, is the cost of medication here through the hospital system is not cheap because it has to be legitimate medication. Most of it's imported, and the
Okay.
prices are,
so,
well, exorbitant for a local. And a lot of local people, if they can't afford treatment, they must ask their family and or friends to help you. Otherwise, you will die. Simple.
They
You
can't
will
look
die.
after you.
They can't afford it. You can't. Any procedure, you must pay. Unless you are deemed to be destitute,
yes.
then you are covered. Otherwise, people pay for public health care.
So when you're in public hospital, you have to have the family members bring you food or something.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Food, clothing.
So that's a
You'll pay a bit more if you want a room with air conditioning. You will pay a bit more. No such thing as a private room that I've seen. The last time I was there for another procedure, don't ask, I asked for a private room. They said sure, and I was in a room with 2 other guys. That's a private
Or
room.
sometimes in Australia you get the same thing. If you go for a private room, you get 4 other guys with you. So that doesn't mean anything. You don't get any. You might be lucky for a single room. But anyway, the other thing that is probably challenging is the visas.
Well,
Like
that's another challenge.
So when you arrive, when I applied for a visa, I think they have 3 months. Is that right?
From Australia, I believe you can apply for
Multi-
either a 1
multi.
month or 3 month visa.
3-month visa, multiple
Either one.
entry. Okay.
Single or multiple entry. You
Yes.
have the option.
I've got a multiple entry, but it's only for 1.5 months or whatever it was.
Yep.
I don't know why I did that, but anyway,
I don't know.
cost me more.
Maybe you've got too much money for it.
Maybe I have. It's, anyway, I was going to say, okay, so the 3 months are over, and you've been here for a long time.
Yep.
And I know for a fact that you have to renew your visa.
Correct.
Now, my understanding, right, from about previous discussions, that you have to go to Cambodia. Is that correct?
Well, I don't have to. You have the option, but you must leave the country
Yeah.
on or before the date that your visa expires.
Yes.
And the most convenient way for me to do it is engage the services of a car driver.
Yes.
Drives him to the airport. He hangs around for a few hours.
Yes.
Behind the scenes, we have here what are called visa consultants. You pay them a fee, and they arrange
It's a whole
your
industry.
visa. It's a massive industry,
Yeah.
and
So
a
it's-
lot of people
it's
here
Cambodian
screw up.
border, right?
Well, from Saigon, from Ho Chi Minh City, the Cambodian border is the closest.
Which one?
Cambodia.
Cambodia. Yeah.
The nearest exit point from here,
Right.
which is approximately 2 hours away, give or take.
2 hours by car.
2 hours by car or motorbike.
Yeah.
Have a few stops along the way, give or take 2 hours. And the more you pay, the quicker the service gets. For example, if you pay X, you might have to wait 6 hours for your visa to come through. If you pay X times 1.5,
So you have to wait at the border.
in the Cambodian side.
All right. So you got to sit there for 6 hours
If you want it,
because of you. How
you
much
have
you
to
pay?
wait. Well, if you're very, very financially
So-
cheap, you'll pay as little as possible, but you spend half the day there.
So what do? You
I pay the top dollar and I wait there for no more than 2 hours. Maximum.
plus the cost of
Plus the
consultants,
cost,
plus
plus
the cost of the taxi driver.
and
Oh my God!
the cost of getting the visa for Cambodia. That some people
You have to
overlook.
pay for Cambodian
You have
visa.
to enter Cambodia.
Oh God! Is there any other way of doing this, or just that's it?
Uh,
I think relax this sort of.
There's that option, which I'm not quite there, but almost. The band of gold, almost. But even then, even if you are legally married to a Vietnamese citizen, like my friend Bill, you are obliged to leave the country every 6 months. You get an exemption, but you must depart the country every 6 months.
Right.
So they are very tight in that regard because they don't want people to become sponges, parasitic in Vietnam.
Right.
They have enough economic problems. They don't need destitute foreigners to be begging on the street.
Right.
And there are quite a few here. And I'm embarrassed for them. Westerners holding up signs, please help. And they're preying on the fact that Vietnamese people are very kind people generally, and they're very giving people. And they just get by on handouts from local people who can't really afford to do this. But they feel sad for these, for me,
Expats.
incredibly irresponsible expats
Yeah.
who sleep in the street.
Well,
Sleep down the
I
supermarket.
find that the expats I've met a few. They usually hang around the Aussie bars or whatever.
Absolutely they do.
Yeah, and all they do is drink. They have a young Vietnamese girlfriend,
Uh-huh.
and their life revolves around the beer, drinking beer, and going home. And I can't see how that's.
It doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
I have been to a, let's call it a hostess bar once in my life, and that was a few days ago. And it's not my thing, but a lot of people do it. A lot of people.
But you enjoyed it, right? The experience was good for you.
Was it?
I think so. I saw your face, and you were really you enjoyed the experience.
I was suffering in silence. Not everyone enjoyed loud music.
Yeah, but
Not everyone. Some do. Not me. Occasionally I go to a bar
yes,
and it's dead
for
quiet.
that you use earplugs, right? And wear sunglasses.
I'll put it down to experience and never set foot in those places again. Not my thing. Supply and demand, definitely not my thing. Some
Alright.
people like that yada 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 yada. It's not for me. It's for some people, but not for me.
Well, all I can say is that
Yes.
my friend Nick here, what he's saying is being cryptic. But I took him to the bar, and let me tell you,
I wanted to walk out, but the minute I set foot in there, I wanted to just go straight back out.
yes, actually that's true. He did. As soon as he walked in, he said, "What am I doing here?" And he wanted to walk. By the time we got in there, we settled down. He didn't want to leave. He was. It was. What time was it? 11:30 or something.
It was way too late.
Wait, like trying to get him out of the bar was a bit difficult.
Because I was medicated by that stage. I don't think I've had a worse experience in my life.
Okay.
And I'm old.
Come on, Dick. Don't
No, I'm not judging. It's not for me.
Okay.
I know a young man called Andy who loves that environment. It's not for me.
Well, it's not something you do every day. I mean, let's put it this
No,
way.
I've never done it.
Yeah.
First time in my life.
I'll tell you what.
In my life.
I'm
Ever.
getting a bit old as well. So, as I'm getting a little bit old as well. But it took me bloody half a day to recover because of all the consumption that we had that night.
So why would you even consider going to a place
well, you
like that?
wouldn't go there every night. That's
I
what
wouldn't
I'm
go there at
trying to-
all.
Yeah, exactly.
I never
right.
have.
Yeah.
I've been here on and off for 12 years. That was the first time I went to a place like that.
But well, thanks.
Don't tell me I had fun.
Thanks to Uncle George, you experienced something new, right? But anyway, okay. So
Never
Nick,
again.
I think we've covered most of it. But the other thing too is that accommodation, right? So
Yep.
if an expat wants to come here,
Yep.
and he wants to live here, stay on a semi or long-term basis,
Yep.
he has to find accommodation. He has to find. He wants to buy accommodation.
No, he cannot buy. The only thing he can buy
Yes.
outright in his name as a non-local, as a foreigner, are designated apartments in designated buildings. Just
Right.
because the property's for sale doesn't mean you're right to buy it.
Okay.
You can, for example, you cannot buy a house on land. Illegal. In conjunction with a local, maybe. But there must be a national, Vietnamese national, on the title of a house. You cannot own it.
So, is the national his percentage of the title
51%
has
as
to
a
be
minimum.
51%. So he's got
The majority.
the majority
Absolutely.
holding,
Absolutely.
and then you have no right to because he holds the card
You
basically.
cannot, he holds all the cards, he or she.
He or she, right?
And life can be a lot easier and better here. And this is the caveat, if you can find someone who you trust. If you
Yeah.
don't trust someone here implicitly,
Yep.
opening,
Bye.
ciao, bye-bye, opening up someone saying goodbye to a customer.
Yeah, she was a very pretty woman. So yeah.
They're all pretty to you, George. They've got a heartbeat, they're pretty, they're alive, they're breathing.
We should have taken a shot from it.
Yes, of course.
Anyway, so the
You cannot own property in your name.
Okay.
You can open a business in your name,
okay, so
but it becomes
the
very
business-
expensive.
Hang on a minute. The business that you opened up.
Yep.
Is in your name.
Nope. Everything is in Dip's name.
But you said you can open a business, but
If you choose
obviously
to.
I
If you
can't.
choose to.
I come here. I don't have a partner. I don't have a
Yep.
business. I don't
Not
have,
yet.
No. Well,
Not yet.
hang on a second. Say I want to open a coffee shop.
Yep.
What happens then?
You can do it.
What? Unless I have a.
You will be gouged. No, you can do it.
But hang on
You
a
will be
second.
gouged.
Do I have to have a partner?
Nope.
Vietnamese partner.
Nope.
Well, how does that one work?
You can open it in your name. But the procedure will be very lengthy and you'll spend a lot of money because your application to open up a business, be it Uncle George, be it whatever, will be held up till you start putting your money in your pocket to help things
So
happen quickly. And
you can't buy the
smoothly.
property.
Nope.
Say you've got a shop. You find a shop for lease.
Yes,
So you buy a lease.
correct.
You can buy this for 10 years,
Whatever
20
it
years,
may be.
whatever, and then you can set up your business legally.
Absolutely.
But it has to be a lease. You can't own, and you own
You
the
cannot
business.
own land.
The business is that an entity? The business an entity? It is
It is.
like a proprietary limited company.
Absolutely.
So
Signed on the door. We are legit. Fully legit.
right, it's registered as something.
Absolutely. But everything is in Dick's name.
Yep.
It can be registered in my name, The process to do it would take an extra 3 to 6 to 9 months. And if you make inquiries to the relevant authority, I'm waiting for my application to be processed. Please.
All right. So what we could cover
Cost
most
of living?
Cost of living. Yeah, that's
talk about
another
that?
very important. I think it is.
Yep.
I think cost of living is I think the most attractive thing for an expat for his choice. We're talking about not just Vietnam, but
Where?
Southeast Asia is very attractive because of the low cost of food, accommodation, if you want to. So that is that is something which is attractive. But what are the disadvantages of having that cost of living? You have that, but in other words, there must be a negative to that.
Absolutely.
So what are the negatives in say, okay, I'm living like a king here, like I've got $1,000 a month and I'm living like a king. But what are the other things that
Okay.
put
The
up?
good and the bad.
The good, that's right, exactly. That's what.
For $1,000 Australian a month, you will not live like a king.
Okay,
You will get by.
you got to live like a local basically with rice and
Well,
Yeah.
not quite. You will live comfortably,
yeah.
but you will not have a flash lifestyle on 1,000 Australian a month. Because
Right.
approximately,
We're talking about now. When you say $1,000, I'm talking about your utilities, your rent, your food.
everything.
Right, that's $1,000 we're talking about.
$1,000 a month.
$1,000 is expenses. $1,000 without the cost of accommodation.
Ah, that's different.
So you can live very comfortably with $1,000.
Your accommodation for a decent place in a decent area in Ho Chi Minh City, a one-bedroom apartment will set you back for a decent place, approximately 500 Australian a month. Approximately, give or take,
Yeah.
depending what you want. If you're going to a more traditional area that has less services, where the roads are crappier, where there's more karaoke at 3 in the morning,
Yeah.
chickens running around, potholes everywhere, you'll get it for 3/4 of that.
Okay.
You'll pay 300 a month.
Okay.
If you want to go to a flash place, $1,500 Australian a month, you might get something. Might. For a decent apartment in a good part of town.
You talk about the city.
Well, more
the
the
lifestyle.
city centre.
Lifestyle. Yeah.
And that's just for accommodation.
Yeah.
You probably won't get it for under $1,000. Just your
For
apartment.
a month.
For a month.
Okay.
Maybe. You might struggle to get it for $1,000 a month.
Right.
Cost of living here, let's say for a single person, if you're very frugal, you can get by, including your accommodation, on 1,000 Australian a month.
Right.
But as a retiree, I think you deserve more and you deserve better.
That's right.
And I think for 1,500 Australian a month, then you're starting to become more comfortable and have the occasional trip away, domestic.
When you talk about cost of living, Australia now, cost of living is, it's just crazy. at the moment.
Yep.
Very crazy. And everybody, you talk about the cost of electricity, we talk about the cost of bloody insurances now in Australia. That the fresh food is still fairly reasonable. I think, it's still affordable. It's really good. That's something which I miss now coming to Vietnam. Well, not really, but
Fresh
we've
food.
got fresh food. Your meats and everything else. And that's quite reasonable. So when you come to Vietnam and you find that the cost again is cheaper than Australia, you still have your fresh vegetables here, you have everything you want here, it's available for you. So you can actually live very comfortably with the cost of living is much lower if you want to live with food here. Food is very reasonable here. The only cost, as you said, I think you mentioned before, is your medical.
And your utilities. Electricity
expensive.
here, water is very cheap.
Yeah.
Electricity is very expensive if you factor in the average salary.
Okay.
Very expensive. For example, if you have a nice, decent one-bedroom apartment, your aircon will probably be going on for 4 to 10 hours a day, your bill will be at least $70 to $80 a month. At least. You have one unit,
Right.
one AC. Water is affordable. It's mainly households here are mainly reliant on electricity. Gas is very uncommon here. Natural gas, very uncommon. You might have gas bottles.
I have bottles, yeah.
Yeah,
LPG.
occasionally. LPG.
Yeah.
But only in the big fancy places, and there are some very extremely
Your cooking
fancy
here is done electrically or you got
Electric.
LPG?
conduction, electric.
Electric.
Conduction. But having said that, if you wanted, say you find a local, marry a local, etc., you could buy an apartment for a decent apartment in a decent area in Ho Chi Minh City for 2-bedroom apartment, say 300,000 Australian. It'd be okay, not great, but okay. If you want to buy land, everything changes. Land in Ho Chi Minh City is incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
Similar to Melbourne.
Yeah.
Similar. There's a property around the corner from us, which is 84 square meters, 4 wide by 24 by 21 deep.
84 square meters.
4 meters wide, 21 meters deep. It's literally around the corner.
Okay, yeah.
And that is on the market now. It's been on the market for a few months. It's on the market for an Australian currency for about 1.25 million dollars Australian for
Right.
84 square meters.
But we're talking about the city.
Yeah, and not the best part.
Yeah.
A popular part, but not the best part. If you picked up that parcel of land, that 84 square meters, and you dropped it in the very fancy part of Saigon, triple it.
Yeah.
We're talking $2 to $3 million Australian.
Yeah.
It's an expensive city to live in.
Yeah.
Land is almost unattainable. An apartment, yeah, you can sort of get one.
What about rents? I mean,
Rents are
obviously
Okay.
affordable.
well
Well, if you want to
for
invest,
someone on stable income from overseas, they're affordable. But for local, they're not.
yeah, but you still got to get a return on your money. If you're asking me,
You mean to buy and invest it?
yeah, of
That's
course.
different. Low
So
return.
if you, well, of course,
Low return.
you now have a coffee shop.
Yep.
and obviously, you're leasing it out. Now, if you look at the price of the property, right? I can just guess the price of this property, and the rent that you're paying. What is the investor getting in percentage on his money? You think?
They're probably
I don't
getting
know. I don't know.
around-
Give me figures. Give me the
They've got
percentage.
nothing to hide.
Yeah.
The rent is approximately in Australian currency. Say around 1,500 a month we pay rent, Australian dollars.
What's it? $400
A bit less. However, we live here upstairs. There's a 2-bedroom apartment
Right.
directly above us,
Right.
up there. Big bathroom, massive walk-in wardrobe, and being an older building that we renovated, restyled a bit, the rooms are very well sized,
Okay.
good size.
So it
So you're
seems
looking
very
at just
reasonable.
under 400
And you
Australian
got a
dollars.
business and run the business as well. So that's real reasonable.
It's reasonable, but for most locals, there's no way they could afford that. This is
Yeah.
commercial rates. You rent the same property around the corner, it will cost you 2/3.
So
Give or take.
1,500 a month,
Yep.
right? Say $400 a week, whatever.
Let's say.
Let's say $400. What would this property be worth? $2 million.
No, if you're worth a fraction less than the one that's for sale around the corner, if that's worth 1.2, this is worth about 1.1 because it's smaller. Let's say just
So
under
was that a
there.
block of land you said?
There's a house just around the corner.
A house or a lot of land?
House on land.
On land, okay.
A house.
Right. Okay.
It's on land.
Okay.
This will be a bit less, about 10 to 15% less,
Okay.
because it's a smaller block of land.
So if
but
I-
you'd still be looking at about $1 million straight to buy.
If I was looking,
Maybe more.
Okay, I'd be looking at if I invested my money in Australia, you get 5% on $1 million.
Yep.
So you get $50,000 a year.
Yep.
Right. Now, what you're saying to me here, this is $400 a week. That's about $20,000, which to me that sounds like
Low.
2% or less than 2%.
However,
return.
where you're making the money is on the growth of the property.
A lot of people, the attraction. I'm talking about men, right? I'm talking about men, right? Especially to when they come to the older age, right? I find that it's in a big attraction Southeast Asia like Vietnam or your Philippines or your Thailand to meet a young girl, and because they will, for them, an older man is a honeybee. He is attracted to them for various reasons. Now,
Is attractive to some of them.
yes,
Not then covers everyone.
no, it doesn't. But on general rule, if you go and you're in the older age, you seem to be attractive to the women. I'm just wondering, in Vietnam, do you get the Vietnamese women? How do they react to foreigners? Do they see them as an attraction, or is it just whatever? I mean,
A novelty, what?
well, novelty as a partner, you might say, right?
Yeah.
So, a 60-year-old Australian guy gets here, comes to Vietnam, is looking to find a partner.
Yep.
Now, and he was obviously, if you're looking for a younger woman, how's he going to get on in Vietnam? Are women in Vietnam, what I'm really trying to find, are women in Vietnam attracted to older Western men?
A smart girl will be attracted to a good guy.
So, age,
Smart
what about the age?
The age is not really a factor here.
Yes?
Having said that, there's an obvious concerns about a 60-year-old man being attracted to a 24-year-old girl.
That's very obvious.
Well, that's it. But when does
Big
it become
age
less
difference,
obvious?
yeah.
When is too much too much?
Yeah.
Okay. Dick, she is 15 years younger than me,
Right.
and if I was a guy who just wanted to flash money around, she would not have given me a second look.
Right.
She's much smarter than that, more
You want
perceptive.
a relationship.
Exactly. As do I. As did I and do I.
Yes.
But here there are a lot of people, mainly girls, who can be very opportunistic. And if they see me walking down the street,
Yes.
all they will see is an ATM card.
Now,
That's all they'll see.
okay.
Depending on
You
the
say
girl
some,
and
yeah.
how desperate they are.
Is that? Yeah.
And depending on how much pride
All
they
right.
have in
So
themselves.
how?
Pride.
Okay. I'm not talking about me because I'm at my big age. Right?
You're
So
past it.
I'm past it. So we're talking about 50 or 60-year-old
Yep.
bloke that doesn't get a look in Australia. Say women sort of, he'll come here if you're looking for a relationship.
Yep.
How's he going to go here? Is he going to? I mean, he's not overly rich. He's got enough to get by.
Mm-hmm.
He'll go to a dating site. I don't know what he's going to do. He's trying to find himself a.
But why? That's my question. Why would he go to a dating site?
I don't know. I mean, how's he going to find a woman?
By socialising.
If you're-
Socialising.
Yeah.
Not going to a bar. In a bar, you'll get a bar girl. And from what I know, my experience here, a bar girl is after one thing and one thing only.
They've got a job to do.
They've got a job to do.
Of course. But where's he going to go to socialise? He has to meet local people, get to know people,
Yep.
and that's going to take time.
That's right.
Yeah.
And if he lives here, there's more chance that he will engage in society, become a member of his neighbourhood, help out, do some volunteering work,
Yeah.
help out the local kids who can't afford to go to school, can't afford to go to English classes.
Right.
Make it known that person X is open and receptive and wants to be included in society.
He wants to be part of the.
Yes, he
yeah.
wants to be part of the fabric of society, not
Right.
thinking long term, go to a bar, meet a hooker. Okay, if that's what you're after, you can find that here. You
So-
can find that in many
Okay,
countries.
so
A smart girl
Yeah.
will not be in that group.
So
They're very conservative
Okay.
people generally. Very
So
conservative.
if we're trying to find a woman
Yep.
that would be there for the right reasons,
Yep.
she'd not be impressed with any flashy guy. She wants a permanent relationship. Would she want to go overseas or stay here? What would she be looking
Well,
at? Go
I
back
don't
to
think there's a black and white answer to that question. I know a few people that have moved overseas and they see it as more, be it Australia, the US, Germany, whatever, they see it as being the case that those countries have more opportunities.
yes.
That could be the case, but there is a very high price to pay. Very high price to pay.
You don't know the unknown.
Not just the unknown, you're on your own. You're on your own. Unless you have family connections in Sydney or whatever, you're moving from your hometown to a country with the man that you've chosen to be with. But you are on your own. And that sense of isolation does get to people. After a year or two, I miss my family, I want to go back.
Right.
And then that causes a lot of headaches, a lot of issues within the couple. But hang on, we've made a life here, but I want to go back. Why did you marry in the first place? Yada, yada, yada. So only a legitimate relationship will work. We had a long-term relationship with Jeff for about a year and a half. But it was, I was coming and going any opportunity I could. You know, breaks from work, I would create breaks. I think once I came here for 11 days and I had a medical certificate. Nick is unfit due to medical condition. There was nothing wrong with me. I just made up some
Yeah.
bullshit.
It
I
was
wanted to
easy
sit
to
there.
get a medical student. Yeah.
That's it. It's easy to do. But if you are legit and thinking long term and make an effort to find the right person, I think the right person exists everywhere.
Okay.
And my question goes back to what you said earlier. For whatever reason, you can't find a woman in Australia. Why not? That's my why not?
No. Yeah.
Why not?
I don't know if that is fine. I think,
Or the right woman finds him.
yeah. I think that a lot of lonely people in Sydney, a lot of lonely people.
In the world.
Yeah. I
In
think
the
so,
world.
Yeah.
But a desperate person will do stupid things to get out of poverty. Even an older person can probably, if they choose to go down that path, go to the more poor parts of the country and literally almost pluck a woman, a divorcee, a widow, whatever, who will serve and look after him for the rest of his life. Is that the person you want? Where language is a barrier? I have a friend who speaks English fluently. His wife speaks almost zero English, and they communicate in a very creative way. There's a lot of pointing and words that are a mishmash of English and Vietnamese. I hope they do well.
Did they have Google Translate?
They have Google Translate. I don't want to live my life with my partner doing that.
It'll take time to.
Well,
yeah.
I know a guy that's been with his woman for 10 years.
Yes.
And most of their conversations are with Google Translate.
Yeah.
That's not for me.
So she probably doesn't want to shift,
Nope.
and he probably doesn't want to shift. Either.
Nope.
And that can deal with.
Well, what type of relationship is that? If you're using a device to communicate, doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
I'm very, very lucky.
Yeah.
Dib speaks English fluently.
Yeah.
Causes problems sometimes because she knows exactly what I'm saying. So,
So,
we can't say
well,
bad translation.
Okay. So your advice to an Aussie guy in between their age 50s and 60s or 70s, whatever, coming here thinking that they're going to get it.
What, women flocking at their
Yes.
feet?
Yeah.
Yeah, they will in a bar. They'll be bar girls.
Okay. All right.
They will be desperate bar girls.
Okay. All right.
And a lot of them end up in Australia. Not all, but the majority end up working in nail salons
Yeah.
in appalling conditions, breathing in horrid fumes
Yes.
for 6.5 days a week. Living with 5 other girls in a tiny flat, sending half their money to support their family back
Yeah.
in Vietnam. If that's the life they choose, okay, great. But nothing is ideal in life, and it's not the case that if a guy comes here who's had difficulties in his life and he thinks that he will have the pick of the crop because he's got a bit of money in his pocket. No,
Yeah.
he'll get a cheap person if that's what he wants.
You'll find the partner.
He'll find a partner
Yeah.
who's willing to sell her soul.
Yeah.
Why? To have a roof over her head. If that's
Well, there is a trade-off. She wants economic stability,
Yep.
and he gets.
he wants a nurse, a nanny. He wants a mother substitute. Okay. If it works for them, long term,
Well, that's what's
Great.
going to happen.
great,
That's what's going to happen.
great.
All right,
And
Nick.
then that can cause conflict amongst his family.
Yeah.
If he has children, his
Does,
family,
does,
that will also cause
okay.
conflict.
Is there a culture here, like probably like the Philippines, where the ATM machine, would have to look after her and the family
Yep.
and the whole village?
The poor, no, not the whole village,
Well,
but
in the Philippines, you do. I
well,
think.
it's a different country here. Here,
Yeah.
the general rule of thumb is if you find a very poor girl from a very poor family,
Yes.
to a significant degree, you marry the girl, you marry the family.
So you're responsible.
You take it on unless you're incredibly firm early on and say, I will support my wife, the rest you're on your own. I'm marrying the girl, I'm not
Yes.
marrying the family.
Right.
And that's the end of the discussion. But then occasionally the story pops up. We have a bit of a running joke here amongst some Aussies I know. There's always a sick buffalo in the family.
Yeah.
I need money. What are the buffalo sick? Okay. My auntie's sick. Okay. Another buffalo is sick.
Yes.
We'll always refer to it as the sick buffalo. That's the analogy.
Yeah.
But you know, think very, very carefully to uproot yourself. There is a price to pay.
Yes.
Everything is a price. Nothing is friend like, George. Nothing. Only my friendship, which is
Yeah.
price.
Yes.
But you know, it's easy to say, oh, I'm going to go live like a king in Vietnam. Yeah, of course you can. If you're on about 10 grand a month, you live like a king.
Yeah.
10
Well, it's
grand a month.
Very, very important what you just said there, Nick. On that note, I think we're going to say thank you very much for your friendship. Is the most important thing in the world. Irrespective-
Genuine friendship.
Genuine friendship is
Yep.
very important.
Yep.
On that note, thanks, Nick. I appreciate your time.
Well, Conquer G.
And-
As we say here,
and,
Conquer G.
we're running about 50 minutes of video, and I'm not sure how we're going to get away with that. We're going to have to break it up in a couple of pieces, but
Wait till I tell you my hourly rate. Wait till I see what I charge.
on that note, we better cut it short because I can't afford this anymore. See you, Nick. Bye.
Ciao.